Thank you, Michael. Good morning, everyone. Let us pray. Lord, we're so grateful for the sacrifices of those who have given their all in serving this country. Lord, we're thankful for the beautiful weekend that we've just had. We ask you to continue to protect those dealing with COVID-19. And Lord, give us the courage to step beyond our fears and to step into the opportunities that are presented to us. And all these things we pray in your holy name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Les. Want to start off as we do every week. This is our 9th town hall. So we've certainly enjoyed them, and I'll talk at the end about our schedule moving forward. Roy, do you have sound now? Roy said he had no. On the gratitude side, if you've got a gratitude and you want to enter it into the chat box, that'd be great. I will share two, one on the serious front and one on the not serious front, since they do kind of on the other side. On the serious front, I want to thank all of those who both served for our freedom, and especially those who gave the ultimate sacrifice as we just finished Memorial Day. If you saw my email yesterday, probably a few less barbecues and a few less parties, maybe give us a moment to remember Memorial Day really for what it is. It's kind of become the unofficial start to summer, but that's really not what it's about. It's about remembering those who gave the ultimate sacrifice so that we could be free. And a few of the small benefits of COVID-19 were really the opportunity in certain circumstances, and Memorial Day is certainly one of them, to slow down and appreciate a few things. And so it's certainly something that we all should be grateful for. Can I get a couple of thumbs up as far as if everybody can hear me? I've had 2 chat box comments that they can't hear. Okay, so it's probably on their end. I apologize if it's on your end and you can't hear, but if everybody has a major problem, let me know. So that was my obviously serious gratitude. The not as serious, and Nancy, thanks for the text, is that hair salons are back open. I got my hair cut at 8 o'clock this morning. So it's been nearly 3 months. So I was very happy to get up early and get my hair cut so that I look a little more presentable on these video. So now we'll go ahead and get on with, remember last week we talked about, and again, all of the town halls are recorded on C1 Row, or recorded and available on C1 Rows if you didn't get a chance to watch them. Remember last week we talked a little bit about, we had Paul Boomsma from Leading Real Estate Companies of the World join us as our guest. And we also talked a little bit about lessons I learned from watching the new Scooby-Doo movie with my wife and sons. And so quick recap of that. Remember, we've all got a little bit of Scooby and Shaggy in us. We need to make sure that we don't get paralyzed by fear. We've got to make sure we find the courage to confront and overcome those fears, because usually it's not as bad as it seems. And also that there's great satisfaction in uncovering the truth. And I think those are some Scooby-Doo lessons that resonate with all of us, and probably one of the reasons why Scooby-Doo has been around for the past 50 years, if any of you had a chance to check that movie out. Thanks, Kristen, for the comment on my hair. I appreciate that. Looking at the market a little bit, our strong May is continuing. Probably last week will not be a market-wide record for weekly sales, but it may come in third. If you remember, 3 weeks ago, we set an all-time record for pending contract sales. And 2 weeks ago, that record was beaten by a small amount. And while last week probably wasn't a new record, it'll probably be the 3rd best week ever. So that's the 3 successive weeks of really robust activity. Again, make sure you educate your clients on what's going on in the market. So remember, closings are going to lag contracts by at least 30 days. So we're going to see May closings down over last May, and that's anticipated since April written contracts were down. However, the written business really tells you what's going on today. and we're going to certainly see a strong June closing month. And it's important that our clients know what's going on in their submarkets. I was talking to an agent today on a new listing with really, really tight inventory, which continues to be super, super tight. And she got 2 offers on a property. One was very close to list, and the other was probably about 10% off. And again, that may not be emblematic of the whole market, and that may have been simply the max her clients could go, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it also could have been an agent who didn't really educate her clients on what's going on. The client's feeling like, I should be able to get a discount off this house, given everything that's going on, not realizing they're probably going to lose that house to somebody else that's paying nearly full price for a fairly valued listing. So make sure we educate our clients. Also, it appears that showings are nearly back to where they were this time last year. Again, a good indication, but make sure you also understand that data, because showings, as inventory gets tight, you may look at one house and buy it. That's only one showing, versus when inventory was ample and people may have been looking all over the place. Showings also back to last year's level is really strong, robust activity, because remember, there's a lot of those showings that aren't taking place. People are doing a better job narrowing down what their buyers look at. And a lot of people in town who might want to move to Charleston a year or 2 from now certainly aren't just out looking. The people looking are pretty serious. We did have our first weekend back of responsible open houses. Those riders are in your offices. If there aren't any in your office, please let us know and we'll get some more to you. We strongly encourage you to use those responsible open house riders and the responsible open house protocols that we sent out. From some communication on Facebook, it was a little hit and miss for agents. Holiday weekends can be that way, especially holiday weekends with good weather. But there's no question, if you're a neighbor and you may have popped in an open house to check out something new on the market pre-COVID, that may not be something you're comfortable doing right now. So it's certainly going to be a process as people both have the ability to return to normal as lockdowns and other restrictions ease, but also the desire and comfort level to return to normal. And that's going to take a little while. So we'll just continue on that process. We're also, tomorrow ends week 1 of our new activity contest, the Make a Difference activity contest. And again, we're going to talk with Doug Holladay in just a minute. And he's got a lot of the same practices and daily habits that we talk about. They can parallel and line up well with our culture on gratitudes and personal notes and things like that. But if you look at that contest, remember, the week starts Thursday morning at your sales meeting. Your reporting is due Thursday at noon, and the week ends end of day Wednesday. So we're finishing up week 1. Again, it's all things that you should be doing as part of your daily habit to set you up for long-term success, not only in business, but also in life. And that's why it's focused not on how many listings you take, but on, expressing gratitudes on a daily basis, writing your notes, contacting, and make sure you're looking at your warm and hot list in your sphere to look at who you can help today. And we'll talk about that a little bit more with our guest. Also, if the offices hit their participation levels, the office gets to direct a charity or nonprofit that they want to support. Again, because this activity contest is not about returning to normal. We're not there yet, but it is about serving our clients and obviously continuing to make a difference in the community for that. Okay, with a lot of those things out of the way, I'm going to introduce our guest today. After that, I'm also going to show a quick video. I apologize for those of you on the phone. It's just about 2 minutes long, so I apologize that it won't really resonate with those of you on the phone, but I will send it out via email, so those that weren't able to see it, or maybe you can check it out on C1 Rose as well. But I think that kind of sets the tone both for a lot of the things that are in Doug's book. Oh no, it's green. Oh, there it is. It didn't show up on green screen because she didn't play on that one. Called Rethinking Success. We'll actually, somebody asked me, and we actually are going to do a bulk order for anybody who may want a copy. At the end of the call, you guys can email Teresa and we'll do a bulk order and send it out to you. But a book that I know these things aren't written quickly and certainly couldn't have been anticipating COVID, unless some of your political connections are a lot deeper than they appear on your resume, but certainly resonates in today's world. I'll give you a quick introduction off the back jacket a little bit. Doug Holladay is the founder and director of Path North, which is an organization that Patty and I are members of, and Patty introduced me to, which promotes discussion and meaning and purpose among leaders and executives. He previously worked at Goldman Sachs in New York and at the White House under Chief of Staff James Baker, later serving in the State Department as Special Ambassador to South Africa after the end of apartheid and the reunification of South Africa, which is really, really interesting part of the book. And it's amazing some of the powers of forgiveness. And whether we have a chance to talk about that today or not, I certainly think you'll find that part of the book very, very interesting. He holds degrees from University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, from the Princeton Theological Seminary, and from Oxford. And he's currently a resident professor at Georgetown University School of Business. So Doug, thank you for being here. And I would just kind of start off by asking you, how are things? You're in DC, I think?
Yeah, I'm my home right outside McLean, Virginia, which is only about 4 miles outside of DC.
And how are things with you and your family through COVID?
Yeah, pretty good. We are kind of still in a real hot spot here in the Northern Virginia, Maryland, DC area for some reason. But so I see all these openings. We are not there yet, but it's an interesting. I've actually kind of enjoyed it. With a book out, Michael, I'd rather do what we're doing here than schlepping around to all these bookstores to do things. So it's kind of fun. I've had fantastic opportunities to talk to unconventional kind of groups that are reimagining what it means to be a business person, what it means to be human, all those kind of things. So it's actually been a pretty good time, So.
Yeah, there's no question. I was gonna kind of, we'll get to a couple of these things later, but if there are small silver linings for some of these things, it's the different ways in which we can connect. And I think it started off with social distancing as the buzzword, and now I think, at least for us, we try to use physical distancing because we are such social creatures that it really there's no need that, even if we can't be physically together, to separate us. And as a company, to have 9 successive weeks where we've come together as a company, we have 320 people on the call right now. We would have done this 2 or 3 times a year before.
Yeah. I think it's fantastic you're doing that, because it really demonstrates the need we all have to connect in profound ways. Even before this COVID crisis, UCLA has something called the Loneliness Index, which is kind of odd but interesting, where they say that Americans self-identify, half of Americans say they're lonely. And, you really think of that, that's a crisis of mental health, really. The former Surgeon General identified not obesity and not smoking, but loneliness as the major health crisis of our time. So this is a real thing. So I think, in a funny way, as so many of the mediating structures like the church and other places have lost the kind of hold they used to have, I think the workplace has to step up and provide that sense of community and connection. I think people are longing for it, and they're longing to find it in a much more regularized way. And so I applaud you, Michael, for what you're doing with these calls.
Well, thank you. And I think you're right on. Part of our philosophy has always been that our company and our agents are stronger together with one another, which is why we believe in investing in physical spaces, and that we have, close connected offices that each have their own unique culture. And that's really where a lot of these people have their family and their friends. I met my wife at the office.
Yeah.
As opposed to some things these days where somebody says, you know, you've got Wi-Fi, just go home. You don't need to get out and be with people. But I really do think we do.
Yeah, yeah, you really do. And the underreported problem today with this COVID-19 is the suicide rate is exploding in America. There's so many people that are really struggling. This is exacerbating mental health issues. I mean, we've had a lot of them. This has kind of been a phenomenon that's come out of the closet in the last 15 years. But boy, this is really unmasking a real crisis, you know. So I think the antidote to that, we need others. We need others in the journey. We really need friends. We need to create space in our life to invest in other people, you know.
And I think hopefully, obviously, from the title of the book, Rethinking Success, that everybody probably has gotten the point that a lot of this call is really going to be about digging in a little deeper to some of the things about what connects us to one another, and, you know, where do we have our commonalities, as well as how do we find purpose and meaning. I think all that really tie in to all of the same ninja philosophies that we talk about on an ongoing basis, as we focus not on helping our clients buy or sell a house, but helping our clients achieve their goals through real estate. So, Doug, I wanted to talk a little bit about your book spends some time on that everyone's born into a story, and that we all have a story, and also some of our points of identity. And I wanted to kind of lead into that with, I'm going to ask Les to show a video as a quick commercial. Chick-fil-A is certainly popular in Charleston. And I think they really, as an organization, understand what they do is much bigger than sell sandwiches. And so I wanted to show this quick commercial, and then maybe we can talk a little bit about connection and points of identity.
Great.
Les, I'll let you go ahead and show that video now. Thanks, Les. You know, Doug, we as a company spend a lot of time focusing, again, like I talked about, not on the transaction, but on our clients. In real estate, the average client might transact business every 5 to 8 years. And we've got agents that are in our clients' lives because they care about them first and foremost for decades. And so it really is, on both the business and the personal side, a company that's focused on connection. And I wanted to maybe get you to share some of your thoughts on connection, and also, more of our commonalities and our points of identity that I think are a little different than most people think.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. A couple of things. I love that video because it just demonstrates all around us are these magical stories, good, bad, ugly. If we take the time to listen, we get connected with people in an amazing way. So it's worth the effort to invest what you're doing with the notes and the calls, the unexpected things, the things. And I in my class, I don't let them use the term networking because it reduces this magical thing called a relationship to a commodity. So you want people to feel like you genuinely care because you reap what you sow when you do that. So I'd say that would be one thing. The second I'd say is to have a vision for what you're doing beyond selling homes, for example. It's interesting, the story's told when John Kennedy went down to Cape Canaveral then for the space launch. He walked in and he talked to this man. He said, what do you do? And he said, I'm working to put a man on the moon. Later, Kennedy found out this was the janitor. But the janitor with a vision for his life and what he did that was much greater. And I think of what you all do. I was thinking about it, that you help someone birth something that's going to be the most important thing in their life, a space where they thrive, where their heart's broken, where they exalt in celebrations. It's amazing. So everything is about vision. In Proverbs, it says, where there is no vision, the people perish. So I'd say, if I were some of you, I'd write down that verse about vision and say, what is my vision for what I'm doing beyond making money? What is that vision? The other thing I'd say is, part of why I talk in my book about story is I find that we're all born into a story, and that story is a driver in our life. Some of us never got approval. Some of us don't feel like we're enough. So we're always striving. Do I fit in? Some social scientists call it imposter syndrome. We don't feel like we're good enough, smart enough, and all that. So understanding your story starts to free you from that. The first time I was told that was, interesting enough, Peter Buffett's son was the one that said, Doug, we're all born into someone else's story. And he said, let me tell you mine. Here I am at Stanford as a sophomore, majoring in finance. The only reason I'm at Stanford is because of my last name and who my father is. I could never get in here. And I hate what I'm doing. I'm studying something I don't want to do. And then my father famously announced that he wasn't leaving us anything. And that kind of sucked, he said. And then about
Buffett.
Yeah, right, exactly. And then all of a sudden, about 4 months later, his mother called and said his grandfather died and left him $92,000. That day, he packed his car in Palo Alto and started driving to New York City and started the career that he really wanted to do, which was as a musician. And that's what he continues to do to the day. So I think if we don't understand our story, there are these drivers that make us feel that we haven't done enough, we aren't good enough, we aren't successful enough. And then we in a sense transpose that onto our children. So it's really important to get that right. So I guess I'm suggesting an alternative vision. And the alternative vision is to embrace your weakness. Don't pretend you're the smartest person in the room, the richest, any of that kind of stuff. There's always somebody better. So, but a counter view is our point of identity is not our strength, but our weakness. And if we embrace that, people don't want you to be perfect. What they're looking for are authentic people. you're drawn to authentic people because they're real. They are grounded. And I say that to my class when I teach this MBA class, and I'll never forget 2 years ago, the first day I started out, our point of identity with everybody in this class is not how smart you are and how capable, but the fact that we're all broken. We have broken parts and weak parts. This guy in the front row says, Professor, I've been trying to get in this class, so I'm all in. So here's my story. He said, I've had a debilitating stutter my whole life. It's made me live in the shadows, but I was really strong academically. And he said, here I am, my sophomore year, I'm in an Ivy League school, and I decided I'm going to take my life because I'm so alone and painfully disconnected from everything. He said, but before I do that, I'm going to reach out to some people today and try to talk. I know they're going to ridicule and laugh at me, but who cares? It's going to be over anyway tonight. He's telling us this the first 5 minutes. And then he said 2 things happened when I started to share that I had this debilitating stutter. 1, the more I shared, the less I stuttered. And 2, people started sharing with me their weaknesses and their broken parts. And then he paused, like for dramatic effect. He says, guess what else, Professor? I'm the student body president of my MBA class here at Georgetown. I have to give speeches all the time. So I said to the class, I said, okay, Clark has revealed something about his weakness. How many of you want to transfer out of this class? And of course, nobody raised their hand. Then I said, how many of you feel safer because of what Clark shared? Everybody raised their hand. Because don't you feel more connected when somebody allows you in on their struggles, their failures? So the very thing we fear is the very thing that can be the connecting tissue with our clients, with our colleagues, with our family, with our friends. So I'd say embrace that. And it's much more fun being authentic because you don't have to hide stuff. You're just kind of you.
No, I think that's a great point. You know, Trish Bender had a question on the chat box that said, are we all broken? She said, I'd say we're imperfect, but that's different. Broken, you know, might mean victimized. And I think in the book, you talked about some of the biblical references to the word lost. And you know, when you talk about broken or lost or imperfect, you know, I don't think you really mean victim.
No, not at all. I just mean that all of us know ourselves. We know our vulnerabilities. We know where we've screwed up, where we've made mistakes. We have anger issues. We've lied. We've done terrible things, little and big. And it, you know, that's the human journey. I mean, that's why the biblical narrative is all about grace. It's grace by definition is undeserved favor. We do not deserve goodness to be given to us. All of us deserve this. I think of this great story, Michael, the Lincoln, when he was president, they had the equivalent of a press conference, and he was standing up there. And you might know this, but he just was attacked all the time because he wasn't Eastern educated. Everybody had come out, all the presidents had come out of Virginia and gone to Harvard and all these schools. And here he was, self-educated, a gangly, unattractive guy who wasn't very articulate. So he stands up there, and this one press guy says, Mr. President, you just withstand withering criticism all the time about your looks, your intelligence, your voice, your lack of accomplishments. How do you handle that? What do you think about that? And then he paused and he said, I'm so much worse than they could ever know. And I think about that, Michael, all the time when I have a tendency to get defensive when someone's criticizing me. I start thinking, you know, I'm just so much worse than this guy could ever know. So why am I so defensive and sensitive about that? So I think once we understand our limitations, we become better parents because we're not trying to be perfect. We're trying to connect with our kids on a different kind of basis, and you know, to ask them forgiveness when we make mistakes instead of always catching them doing the wrong things and doing it. So I'd say, simply put, to be the best person in your industry, to be the best spouse in a marriage, to be the best parent, to be the best citizen, the only way you can do that is become the best version of you. So that's why my book is so much about how do you become the very best at who you can be. And there are practices that are knowable that can help you in that regard.
I'll skip out of order on a couple of things and follow up some of the things you said. So, first off, I'd ask a couple of agents on the screen, how many people saw 2 All-Core Memorial Day emails from me? Okay, because we sent out 2 of them. I don't know if you noticed the difference, but the first one, I wanted to make sure I got something out, and I probably didn't take the time I should have, and was actually captioned Happy Memorial Day. And then I had an agent that responded that said, well, Happy Memorial Day really isn't the appropriate content.
Yeah.
Because it's really about remembering those that gave the ultimate sacrifice. And it's not really about celebrating, even though we now have Memorial Day sales and everything else. And so I sent something else out that said, Memorial Day, remembering, those that gave the ultimate sacrifice. And, just like everybody, and I think those are some of the things that I think Doug has taught is, that may, obviously for those who served, I'm not minimizing anything, but that may not be a huge issue. And I easily could have pushed back and said, oh, Happy Memorial Days everywhere and this, that, and the other. But the agent was right. It was a good, I'm glad he let me know what was going on. I was able to correct that, and I'm certainly not perfect, and I certainly make those mistakes as well. And I'd rather send out 2 messages and get it right, even if it's on the second try, than to just ignore it and say, well, I only heard from one person, so I don't need to worry about it.
Michael, if I can jump in, I went to Chapel Hill, so we of course hate everything related to Duke, but I've gotten to know Coach K over the years, the coach at Duke, and he was telling me this story, which I think is so applicable to all of us on this call. So he was saying when he was coaching on the Olympic team, and I think some of you probably saw this 10-part series about Michael Jordan and the Bulls, amazing series if you haven't seen it. But so Michael Jordan was on that fabled team, and Coach K was an assistant coach on that team. So the first day of practice, Michael Jordan goes up to Coach K, and Coach K said, I know you're a Carolina guy, so I'm going to tell you this story. And he says, I know you, those of you who went to Carolina and South Carolina think you're Carolina, so I apologize. So he comes up to Coach K, and he says, could you meet me after practice I'd like to shoot, some buckets and do some things. And so Coach K kind of thought, well, the greatest player ever wants a Duke guy to snag balls for him. I get what he's doing. So they meet after practice, and Michael Jordan looks at Coach K and says, you're probably wondering why I wanted to meet with you. And he said, I think you understand the mechanics of the jump shot better than anybody in basketball, and I'd like to get better. And I was thinking, the best want to keep improving. And if you saw that documentary on Jordan, you don't want to be on a team with him unless you want to get better. He just will wear you out. But I love that story, Michael, because I kind of thought we all need eyes on us that are saying, Doug, do this better. Think about the thing you did with that note where you self-corrected and said, yeah, that's absolutely right. And if we think more of criticism as coaches in our life, when those of us who play sports, we didn't go around getting defensive when the coach said, Doug, you need to dribble a little higher. You didn't say, oh, who do you think you are? No, you kind of appreciate it. We all need coaches. So I think we should think of all of the rest of us on this call as we're coaches in each other's lives. We all want to improve, and the only way to do that is to have people that see us and give us feedback.
And I obviously, Doug, I agree wholeheartedly. In our model, each of our offices has a non-selling broker who's only focused on the success of their agents, and really for that reason. I remember listening to Michael Phelps's coach, who probably couldn't keep up with Michael Phelps for 5 meters, but yet the best in the world still has a coach, because that makes us better, because we're always learning. I wanted to follow up on something you said earlier, Doug. And you mentioned your boys, And in your book, you also reference the Mother Emanuel situation. And it's when you're talking about forgiveness. And I was wondering if you wouldn't mind talking about forgiveness in those two contexts. One, when you talk about the Mother Emanuel situation, which I think everybody's familiar with, but that's kind of some of the grander visions, but also when you talk about your boys and their music career and, your life with them, because I think those are two, kind of like Trish said, with imperfect or broken versus victimized. I think sometimes we feel that the gestures have to be so grand that, well, I don't need to forgive anybody, when even it might be something that isn't even that bad, like the story you talked about with your boys. So I didn't know if you wanted to compare and contrast the two versions.
No, thank you. I'll start with the boys, because I think that's probably relevant to so many of us here. So I have 3 boys. 2 are in music and they're out in LA, and 1 was a Division I athlete, University of Maryland. I played sports at UNC, and but it was interesting. My boys at a young age really started getting good at music, and I liked it because I thought of myself as a cool father. It's kind of neat. We're going to these venues and they're playing music. But as they got bigger, at 14, they're going from DC to New York and Philadelphia, and they're playing all these gigs. And I'm like thinking, whoa, this is different. And I'm getting these people saying to me, is that okay? Are your kids in dangerous places? What's going on? And I went to one, I remember going to one gig, and here's my 14-year-old negotiating with a Rastafarian, whacked out on drugs to get the band fee. And I'm like, wow, what did I get into? So I was having lunch. I'd only met this guy once through a friend of mine, but he was the CEO of Host Marriott Corporation, a spin out of the Marriott company. They did the real estate. And I went over to have lunch with him. So I had lunch with him on this rainy day. I go in there, and I said, Terry, tell me about your kids. He said, well, I've got 2 boys. He said, I went to Harvard, got my MBA at Harvard, and this son did too. And he's an investment banker on Wall Street. And he said, I've got another son who's a drummer in a rock band in Denver. And I said, whoa, buddy, finally somebody I can talk to. So I talked to him, and he said, Doug, I have these 2 boys. I'm really concerned about one. And he said it this way. He said, he has lost his soul. That's what he said. Of course, I'm thinking he's talking about the one in the band, but he's talking about the one on Wall Street. And I'm like, wow. He said, no, the one in the band has found his bliss. He loves it. It's great. So I tell him about my boys. He has 3 observations. Once I tell him about what they're doing, he says, number 1, at that point, they're about 15 and 14. Number 1, they're not doing anything dangerous, it sounds like. 2, do you realize how rare it is that anybody ever finds a passion, something they absolutely love? And 3, I think their problem is they're different than you. And that one hit me between the eyes, and I thought, wow. So I drive home, I sit them down. They didn't know what the heck I was doing. I said, boy, and I thought about what I needed to do. So I sat them down and I said, guys, to be honest, they didn't know what I meant by this, but I've damned you with faint praise. I've kind of said, that's really great about the music, but when are we moving on? And I said, I want to ask your forgiveness. I want to get behind you and your dreams. If this is what you want to do, I am all in. I have to tell you guys, that day I changed. I know I did. So fast forward, my oldest went to NYU in New York. The second one was studying architecture at Columbia University in New York. And then they had a chance to sign a big record deal and move to the West Coast. And the second one called me up. He had straight A's at Columbia in architecture, was doing good. And he says, Dad, we have this chance to do this record deal, but I have to drop out of school. What do you think of that? I said, that's awesome. What a chance, get out of there. And I really meant it. And he's never gone back, and he's doing the stuff he loves doing. but I realized that I've got to let them pursue their dreams and be that. The second, with Mother Emanuel, we had a fabulous Path North annual gathering in Charleston, but the last day we surprised everybody. So think of this as 150 to 200 leaders in the ballroom. I think it was the Balfour or something like that, downtown. Beautiful hotel.
The Charleston
Belmont.
place downtown.
So all of a sudden, without announcing this, we had this ABC clip that says Dylan Roof has just been arrested for killing 9 people at Mother Emanuel Church. Then the other clip is at the sentencing hearing where people come in, parishioners, and they have a chance to speak to Dylan Roof, and people who had lost their parents, their sister, or whatever, and they forgave him. And then the lights come on. This attractive African-American guy walks up, and he's the new pastor. The former pastor had been shot and killed, but he's there. And he invites us to go to the Mother Emanuel Church. We go down there. We hear from parishioners about how they forgave. And I got to tell you, some people in our crowd were not pleased. How can you forgive this monster? But they talked about that. And at the end, I gave them all an envelope and a piece of paper to write a letter to themselves, which we mailed to them in a month, about who they need to forgive. And I close by saying this. Not forgiving is like me taking poison and thinking you're going to die. It's stupid and doesn't work. So forgiveness, the reason Jesus says forgive is you've been forgiven, because that releases you. That releases us. So I'd say don't let that toxic state continue. Your kids are watching you. If there's an aunt that you haven't spoken with for 10 years, call them. This stuff affects you. So as a result of the Mother Emanuel thing, one CEO called me about 2 months later. He says, Doug, I haven't talked to my mother in 10 years. We're alienated. And I started the process. We're talking. So forgiveness is powerful. It should be a part of our daily kind of routine. I did it as recent as yesterday. I said some things to somebody, and I was meditating yesterday morning. I said, that was wrong. And I called them last night and said, I'm just so sorry,
Yeah, I think you talk in the book that and it ties back to no one being perfect, of I think it was George Bush giving a tech operator a hard time, and over I think a malfunction or something that didn't work well. At the moment it's one thing, but then showing the presidential side came back to say, I'm sorry about that. Doesn't mean it's not going to happen, but it's really about recognizing it afterwards.
Yeah, it should be a part, I think, of a regular way we relate to the world, because we make mistakes and people remember them. We're hurt by things. Words have the power to affect people, and we damage people. So I'd say with our kids and with our colleagues, it makes you're thought of in a better way, surprisingly, when you share that you've screwed up, when you've made mistakes. People, again, we're not looking for perfect people. We're looking for authentic people. People that are real. Real people make mistakes. Fake people kind of cover them and pretend and blame and do all that stuff. You are drawn to people who are really authentic.
Doug, just in case you need any affirmation for the day, I had an agent in the chat box just say, I've got to get this book. This man is reaching my soul and my heart. So, I appreciate that comment. And
I do too. Thank you so much.
I wanted to hit a couple of quotes that were in the book that I thought resonated with me, as well as talk a little bit about your kind of daily routine and how that fits in to some of the things that we're actually doing in our contest, even before I set this interview up. First, tie a little bit back to when you were talking about no one's perfect. One of the quotes that I really liked was, never compare your insides with another's outsides.
I think we have no idea what's going on with people. That's why I love what Michael showed you, that amazing Chick-fil-A thing, because I think we assume everyone else has it together. Everyone is fighting their own particular brand of a battle. They're all struggling with insecurity, failure, expectations for their kids, disappointments, illusions. We're all doing it. I'm not rich enough. I'm not secure enough. I'm not this enough. So there's these haunting voices that are always saying these crazy things to us. So I think really getting in touch with our story is really important. So I'd almost say, in terms of the things that I'm trying to do, Michael, I'm not perfect with this every day, but I think you need to create space to think. So every day I'll put on, say, some Gregorian chant, and I'll just sit for.
Oh, me too. No, I don't do that part.
Okay. And I'll just sit and be quiet for 5 minutes and still yourself. Be still and know that I'm God. Then I do my gratitude list. You don't have to make a list of the things that aren't working in your life, right? We all know them. The things that we're grateful for, the cup of coffee that you love, the beautiful day, the scenery, the interaction you had. Looking at those things and actually writing them down. I would urge you to have a journal of some sort, that I have one over there that, I just write down every day. So I have my Path North journal, and I write down things in this. It slows you down to write instead of using technology. Then I have a gratitude list. I do a weird kind of gratitude list. So here's mine for 2020, right? So I do one every year on one piece of paper, front and back. I just write little things. It might be 3 little words, about something, an interaction with a child, something cool, but it's all little stuff. So at the end of the year, I have about 700 of these, and I laminate it. I don't know why I do that, just to keep them around. And so that's another one. Then I read something inspirational. I've been going through the book of Proverbs, like one a day. There's so much wisdom in the book of Proverbs. I would urge you to read that. So I do that. Then I have a book. I usually read a chapter of a book. And then I do some prayer. And then I try to just meditate for about 15 minutes. Just totally, I have a mantra, be still and know. And I'll just try to disengage. There's something about meditating without making lists or prayer or anything, but just letting go and stilling yourself. It's almost like our muscles are so tense. That enables you to just let go and just find a mantra, a couple words, let go, whatever yours is. And then I do actually a breathing exercise. One of the best things you can do for your health is just to breathe right. So through your nose, 5 seconds in, and then 5 seconds out. Do that about 3 times. That changes how, breathing is central to our well-being, So we're integrated people. The way we think is important. What we eat is important. Exercise is important. So much of our life is compartmentalized. So I'm arguing the book about making everything part of one whole, that you are the same person all the time, So a lot of times we say, oh, I got to pray because I'm so anxious. Maybe you just need to go for a long walk. So all of these things interact with each other in a wonderful way, So again, I'm going to say the best thing you can do for your children is to become the best version of you. More is caught than taught. I just finished a book by an eminent psychiatrist, the end of his career, and he said, I'm going to tell all you parents something depressing. He's at Johns Hopkins, the head of psychiatry there. And he said, I'm going to depress all you parents. He said, all the things you've taught your kids don't matter. There's one thing that matters, how you have lived. So this argues for us becoming the best version we could possibly ever be. And that will be the message for the people we work with, our kids, for you to start saying honestly that where you've made mistakes and all this, they see it already. They got your number. Come on. just
So I'm gonna follow up with one thing from the book, and then another question that ties to what you just said. First off, from the book, I thought it was interesting, that when you talk about maybe it's just important to be quiet for a little bit, and I guess this was tied to a study because the book's very documented. That when left alone in a room for 15 minutes with nothing but a device that would shock you, literally, like physically issue a shock to your body, like after like less than 15 minutes of alone time, the majority of people press the button.
Yeah. It's unbelievable. This was a study at the University of Virginia where they're trying to find out how people understand loneliness and solitude. And they put people there, and it was a question of, can you stand it being alone for like a half hour? And most could not. After a while, they would hit this shock thing because they wanted stimulation. So I contrast that with a great thing. Blaise Pascal, the philosopher and inventor, French, he wrote in this little book, Pensées, this great quote. He says, the fundamental problem of a person is never learning to be alone within four walls. So there's a difference between loneliness and being content being alone. And the second one, I take 16 leaders every year to a monastery, a Franciscan monastery, where they actually chant. And for 2.5 days we're there. We don't speak to each other. We eat at the same table. We spend time alone. And I have to tell you, it's transformative. I've taken hedge fund guys, all kinds of manic people, and it changes their life learning to be quiet and still. So most of us never have that experience. We are petrified to be alone. We always have devices. So I'd say that would be a good place to start. Start with 2 minutes where you have no distractions, nothing other than just breathing and being still. Get content with yourself, I'd say.
Yeah, and the activity contest, has us trying to build the habits of those activities. Remember, you've got to do those things before you wake up and check your email, as John Grafillo said, or at that time, you're on someone else's schedule. Wrap up to the end, you talked a couple of times about kids, and I thought another thing that I made note of in the book was that no one wants unhappy kids. Yeah. But you also don't want too happy kids. And that was TOO, not TWO, because I would prefer two happy kids on the number. But what do you mean by that? Because you also talk about, a lot of times, and this is kind of a multi-part question, but how valedictorians don't usually achieve the greatness people would think they would. And that's all kind of tied up into a chapter about taking risk, because we do have things on an ongoing basis, especially in a business that's independent contractor driven, of being afraid to take those risks because we've all been taught that failure is so bad.
Yeah. This generation of entitled people, we've done so many things thinking we're setting our kids up for success, but the very things that made so many of us successful are the very things we're denying our kids, which is crazy. So they're not resilient. So they had this poll and they asked parents, my generation, they said, are your kids weaker or stronger than you? 90% of the parents said weaker. They asked the kids the same thing and they agreed. 90% said we're weaker than our parents. So in a sense, by giving them all the advantages, in a weird way, we have denied them that resilience and that stuff about learning to figure things out. I have a guy that I've done private equity with, very successful guy, and he lived in New York, and he went to this private school, and the first day they dropped him off, and he was supposed to be in the first grade, he was playing with kids in the second grade. And he went to class with the second graders, and he ended up in that class for 3 months. And then finally they told his parents that he was in the wrong grade, but he's a smart guy, so he was doing things. He had figured out how to succeed. And he said, you know, in my generation, you just figured stuff out. The parents didn't fix everything. And we spend so much time doing that. We'd be mortified if that happened, and we'd call the authorities and do all this. He had to figure out on his own. He told, as a first grader in the second grade, he said to the principal, I'm kind of liking, these are my friends. If I'm doing okay, can I stay? And they said, sure. So it's almost like we need to make sure that we're not denying them those very things that'll make them successful. I feel like I've done that with my kids. Thinking I was giving them every advantage, I think they're not as strong as I would hope, you know, in so many ways.
No, I think that's great. Believe it or not, it's 11. So we're
yeah, and I actually have a call too that I need
out of time, but I want to thank you sincerely.
Oh my gosh, thank you guys, and maybe we should do it again. I mean, I'd love to answer some of your questions because I am sure I've confused you all.
I'd love to set that up. Thank you very much, Doug, for your time.
Thank you, Michael. I really appreciate your leadership and what you're trying to do. He's the real article.
Well, I appreciate that. It means a lot. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
See ya.
So I have had some people ask if, you know, the book is Rethinking Success. You know, it's green, so you can't see it. I'm holding it up, believe it or not. Oh, that's weird. There it is. Oh, it's in there somewhere. You know, I've known Doug for probably about 2 years now, and actually had wanted him to speak to the company in some format. So I think this gave us a great opportunity. You know, we did order some books from the management team in bulk. I think the book's like $20 on the little sticker thing, but they sold us some in bulk for $15 each. So, you know, if you want to email Teresa, $22 on Amazon, Digit said. If you want to email Teresa, you know, do so if you'd like a copy, and I'm happy to order another bulk shipment or send you some of the ones we have for $15 and put it on your AR, not a big deal. Again, we're not here to sell books, and neither really was Doug, but I thought it was important for him to share not only the examples about living a life of meaning and connecting with those around us, but also some of the greater messages about forgiveness and some of the other issues and failure, and that we're all not perfect. Because again, part of what the philosophy we followed, both in business and in life, is to live a connected life, connected with our clients, connected with our coworkers, to have somebody that helps, you know, recognize our weaknesses and help us achieve greatness and do better. And I hope that, you know, you guys are on that ride with us, and we appreciate your partnership and everything you guys give in creating the organization that we have, because without that, it really wouldn't be much of anything. And I appreciate Doug sharing his time and you all being here to go forward. If you don't want to email Teresa, you can also tell your OA, and she can get those to Teresa kind of in a bulk setting if that's easier for you. Either way, we'll make a list, and then we'll kind of go from there. So I appreciate everybody being here. We are going to move, and I'll send out an email as well to the town halls to a monthly format. This is our 9th in a row, and we want to make sure that as we return to a more normal world, we kind of keep some of the benefits of the pandemic, but that we don't overwhelm everybody with too many weekly or bi-weekly calls. So we're going to move these to try to keep them robust and informative as the market settles down. Everybody doesn't need you know, market updates on showings or stats as frequently. So we'll slow a few of those things down. So I will send out an email, but our next town hall, we're going to keep the time Tuesday at 10. Will be Tuesday, June 16th at 10. And then we'll do the mid-month moving forward on an ongoing basis so that we can get together as a group at least once a month, but we can put that in their calendar. So I will email that out to everybody. It's going to be Tuesday, June 16th at 10. Hope everybody has a great week and appreciate you all being here and look forward to seeing you. Bye.